My book, It's Not About the Money, is officially out in bookstores, and today I'm going to share with you some lessons I've learned along the way writing my first book. Hi, I'm Scarlett Cochran, and this is One Big Happy Life, where we help you find balance, build wealth, and live happy. Everything that you need to create the life that you want. It has been 3 years in the making, but my book, It's Not About the Money, is officially out in stores. It's not just me holding a physical copy, but so many of you have already been sharing your own copies with me on social media, tagging me that you've gotten your book, and it's just been such an incredible experience. And I'm so thrilled with all of the support and kind words that you've been sharing. It has been such a journey getting to this point, and I'm really excited to share the lessons that I have learned along the way. But before I do, I wanted to let you know that if you haven't gotten your hands on the book, now is the perfect time to order your copy. Head on over to onebighappylife.com/book, and you'll find a link to many different book retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and of course, local book retailers. And yes, for those of you who live outside of the United States, the book is available all across the world. So head on over to onebighappylife.com/book to order your copy. But here's the thing, after you order, make sure you go back to onebighappylife.com/book and register for the limited time book bonuses. To celebrate and commemorate the launch of the book, I'm offering some limited time bonuses that you're not going to want to miss, including a live book study with me later on in March. And you're not going to want to miss it. We're going to have a lot of fun diving deep into the topics of the book, going through the book together. So again, onebighappylife.com/book. All right, so now let's talk about the lessons that I have learned. Number one is that writing a book is hard. Really hard. And maybe that lesson was like a no-brainer, like everyone knew that it was hard and it's a hard thing. But in my mind, I didn't realize exactly how hard it was going to be, because writing a book is something that I've wanted to do my whole life. And I've always considered myself to be a writer, even though for a long time what I was writing was fiction. I would write about vampires and witches and werewolves for a lot of my life, from since I was a teenager until probably like right after law school. So I've written on and off my whole life. And so to me, I thought the writing would just come naturally, especially because while this is not a fiction book, it's a nonfiction book where I teach personal finance principles and a system for managing your money well. I was teaching concepts in the book that I had taught here with One Big Happy Life and also inside of Wealth Builders Society. So to me, the idea of writing a book about the work that I was doing that I understood and knew and taught on a daily basis didn't seem like it was going to be hard. But let me tell you, when I sat down to actually do the writing, it was miserable. It was miserable. I remember one day in particular, this is when we were living in Virginia, and we had 2 different apartments. I had an apartment that I worked out of, and then we had our apartment upstairs that we lived in. And so when it was time for me to write, I would go downstairs, I would work, I would have the space to myself. It would be quiet, which is perfect because, you know, Reeves is a young, wild one that keeps our house quite exciting and noisy. And I just remember being down there and trying everything to get the words to come, and eventually just kind of giving up and just laying on the ground and rolling around on the floor, just groaning at how hard it was and how miserable I was feeling trying to get the words out. And so, yeah, I was really surprised at how hard the process of writing was, how time consuming it was, how much it took out of me, like creatively, energetically, to the point where even though I wasn't making that much progress, what was interesting was it was also taking up all of my time. So yeah, lesson number one, writing a book is hard. And one thing that I wish I had done differently, and for anyone who's thinking about writing a book, I wish that I had just started writing so much sooner. Like if you think that you want to write a book, if writing seems interesting to you, then just start building a writing practice now, even if it's just 15, 30 minutes a day, writing every single day. Doesn't matter what you're writing about. It doesn't have to, your writing doesn't have to have like a point or an end goal. You could just explore what you're interested in that particular day, like following your curiosity. Just building that habit of allowing the words to come, of allowing your curiosity to flow, will help so much. I mean, not only will you have built this large body of work just based on your own thoughts, and writing really does help you hone your thoughts over time, but you will have built the practice of actually putting your butt in the chair and doing the writing, which is something that I had not done prior to having to actually sit down and get the book done. So lesson number 1, writing a book, very, very hard. Lesson number 2 is that you don't have to write a book alone. And this is a lesson that I wish I had learned much, much sooner in my writing process. It was only after fighting and struggling with writing the book by myself for 4 or 5 months where I got to the point where the structure of the book just didn't seem to work for me anymore. So if you're not familiar with the publishing process, especially when you're going to work with a traditional publisher and you're writing a nonfiction book, you write what's known as a book proposal, where you put together a guide for the publisher about how you think the book is going to go. And so initially, the proposal that I submitted to the publisher, the book was supposed to be 12 chapters long, 12 thick chapters. And when I sat down to write the chapters, I realized that it was way too much information for it to only be in 12 chapters. I wanted the book to be really easily digestible. I wanted you to be able to dive in, get what you needed, and pop out. I wanted it to be a reference guide. And so with these big, meaty chapters, I just thought that it would be too much for people to get through. And so I needed to really restructure the book. And I didn't really know how to do that. But luckily, I knew someone, her name is Rachel Rogers, who had written a book. She wrote a book called We Should All Be Millionaires. And she had talked about working with someone to help her mold her book. So one day I just DM'd her and I asked her if she'd be willing to share that person's name with me. And thankfully she did. And I'm just so grateful that when I reached out to the woman who became my book writing coach, that she was willing to squeeze me in to help me restructure the book. And together we sat down and I told her what I was thinking and where I was struggling and how I felt the book needed to be. And together we figured out what became the book's 5-part structure. So instead of having just 12 long chapters, the book now has 5 parts and 20-something chapters. I'm not sure exactly how many. And once we figured out that new structure, it's like things really clicked for me. The book made sense. I understood where I was going, and I felt really, really excited about it. The only thing was now getting the publisher on board, which luckily there was no problem whatsoever. The minute they saw the new structure, they were very excited about it as well. So that's lesson number 2, that you don't have to write a book alone. There are book coaches out there that this is their job. That is their area of expertise, helping guide authors through writing a book, helping new authors understand how to structure a book. So you don't have to do it alone. Although I did it alone way too long. So I wish that I had learned that lesson sooner. The third lesson I learned is that the book publishing process is really, really slow. This has been a process that's been, I guess at this point, almost 3 years in the making, because first there's the writing of the book proposal, then there's pitching and getting an agent, then there's sending your book proposal out to publishers and meeting with publishers and getting interviewed by publishers, and then actually getting the book deal. And then there's the process of doing the writing. And I thought, once the writing is over, which was at the beginning of Okay, so first of all, I wrote the book proposal starting in 2020, got my book agent towards the end of 2020, 2021 at the beginning, got my book deal. And so spent 2021 writing the book, turned the manuscript in at the beginning of 2022, and then spent all of 2022 editing the book and working on the book cover and the table of contents and the glossary and all the things. So this is 3 years to publish this book the traditional publishing route. So I had no idea that I was signing up for this really lengthy process when I did it. So yeah, getting a book published takes a really long time. It is a lot of work. Some people Some people compare it to having a baby, but look, if a baby took 3 years to birth, I don't even know how many people would actually have babies. So yeah, lesson number 3, writing a book takes a really long time. Lesson number 4, the writing part is just the beginning. So I already talked about the lengthy editing process and doing things like figuring out the cover, which by the way, I did end up designing my cover myself. And I really love how it came out. But the publisher and I, it was very collaborative and we went back and forth. And just based on the designs they sent me, that really inspired what turned into the final design. And I definitely had a vision for the design for the cover of the book. But the writing part, even this part, the design part, all of the editing, that was just the beginning. The next part, the biggest part, is actually getting the book out into the world, which is something that I didn't realize. Definitely going into this, in my mind, it was like, oh, a writer writes the book and then it just flies itself out into the world. But that's not how it works. So over the past several months, I've been doing 1 to 2 interviews a day. So that's like, I think at this point, I've done maybe almost 100 different interviews. I've done live TV, something I'd never done before. So I went on Good Morning America, Chicago News, New York's Channel 11, just doing live TV, so many things that I'd never done before. And honestly, I didn't realize that that was something that I was going to be doing because I decided that I wanted to write a book. And luckily, I have all this experience talking to cameras, having made at this point hundreds of YouTube videos, but it was still scary doing things that I had never done before, like live television, Good Morning America, like what? It was an experience and something that I didn't even feel ready for, but luckily, like feet in the fire, jumping full into the deep end, me and my mixed metaphors, everything turned out well. And I'll drop a link to some of the videos so you can watch them if you haven't had a chance to check them out. So lesson number 4, writing the book is just the beginning. And then there's the actual getting the book out into the world and all of the publicity and all of that stuff that comes along with it. Lesson number 5, and now we're getting personal. So goals are important. And having them are important, but it's so important to understand that achieving goals in and of themselves often won't make you happy. And this is something that I've talked about before, especially as we're setting financial goals and this idea that when you hit a certain financial milestone, then you'll be happy, then your life can begin. And I can tell you that while this whole process has been so exciting and filled with so many first in a lifetime, maybe once in a lifetime moments, I can also say that having achieved this major goal that I set for myself, I'm not suddenly a different person. I don't feel more successful or happier or better off in any kind of way. It's been a wonderful experience and I'm glad that I did it. I've learned so many things. I've grown so much, both in my approach to money, the concepts that I teach, how I think about money, and personally, right? My own ability to write and write well. I now have the skill of being able to write a book. So I've grown a lot as a person from this experience. But at the end of the day, I'm still me. I'm still like the high of getting this book deal with a top 5 publisher. I still remember that feeling of it. But it is true that we come back to our baseline all the time. And so you want to make sure that you're not relying on goal achievement as the source of your happiness. So me, I find joy day to day in the home that I share with my family. I love where we live. I love our yard. I go out every single morning, look at the trees, and just I'm so thankful for the life that I've created. I love hanging out with my family, playing board games. After I shoot the video today, we're going to be playing, Zombie Kids, which is a game that Reeves got for Christmas. Those are the things that have meaning for me, that really create happiness and joy in my life. And so it's so important that even while you're striving towards the goals that you set for yourself, as you challenge yourself to live the richest, most extraordinary, most uniquely you life that you can, that while you're striving for that you still create happiness, that you don't let those things be your primary source of joy, because it is fleeting, it fades. And I am just thrilled that I've been living by these principles for so long that I was able to stay grounded throughout this whole process. But even having said that, though, I still found myself feeling a little surprised when I returned to baseline. Like, hey, I got this book deal and oh my gosh, life is still going on exactly as it was. Like the next day, I'm still getting Reeves up for school. I'm still doing the laundry. I'm still thinking about, oh, where are we going on vacation this year? Because things change, but so much stays the same. So just remember that you can live a happy life every single day. And it doesn't depend on whether or not you reach these big goals that you set for yourself. Reaching the goals, that's a lovely bonus. It's a way to orient yourself and how you want to live your life and how you want to show up in your life. But the goals are not the reason why your life is happy. It's the day-to-day life that you're creating and the day-to-day actions that you're taking, like how you are living every single day. So that's a major lesson that I learned in writing my first book. And the sixth lesson I learned, which ties into lesson number 5, is the importance of making sure that I grounded myself in my values, my vision for my life, my why. And the reason is because when you create work like this book, you pour so much of yourself into the writing of the book, and then you set it out into the world, and you just have to wait to see what happens. You have to release control. And when your sphere of control ends and other people's begin, well, anything can happen. And it's so important to be careful about judging how you feel about your work, especially if you are someone like me who is public facing, who puts things out into the world for other people's consumption, that, you get mixed responses, and that's always the case. There's no way to guarantee that your work is going to be perceived or received the way that you intended. And this is true really in every instance, right? We say things, we communicate with family and friends, we do a project, we turn in a project at work, or if you're an entrepreneur and you're creating content, you're creating products for people, we always hope that it's going to be received a specific way, but there's no guarantee that it will be. And so it's really important that when we do the work, that we do the work first for ourselves, like yes, to help people, but first that we do work that we are proud of and that we are happy with what we're putting out into the world, and then just release and allow whatever happens to happen. And that is a lesson that I'm still working on fully internalizing now, with the book officially out into the world and waiting to see what happens and waiting to see what people say. And thankfully, I've been getting lovely messages so far from those of you who have been sharing your experiences, like in the DMs on Instagram. And of course, those of you inside of Wealth Builder Society who already have the book, and we've already started talking about it. And it's been great. But I also know that, look, no one is for everyone. There's that saying about like, you could be the juiciest peach in the world and, someone still isn't going to like you because they don't like peaches. And I love this saying because I'm one of those people that don't like peaches. I would rather eat broccoli or zucchini, which I really do love. So no shade to broccoli or zucchini, but I would rather eat those things than have a peach because I don't really like peaches. So I get it. And I get that I'm not for everyone. And so that is why it's important that when you do work like this, and you're putting it out publicly, that you're prepared to release it and say, hey, I've done all I can do. I'm proud of the work that I've created. And all I can hope is that it touches the lives of as many people as possible. And that's enough for me. So that's lesson number 6, the idea of grounding yourself in your vision and your values and your why so that you can show up and do the work and release the results of the outcome once the work is out into the world. So those are some of the lessons that I've learned. I'm sure I'm going to be talking more about the book writing process, but again, you can grab your copy of It's Not About the Money from onebighappylife.com/book, and then join me live in March and let's do a book study. All right, I will see you next time. Bye.